Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
So, did you figure out what you're dressing up as tomorrow?
He wants to dress up as a real guy who murdered 9 people last year.
Oh, you're not doing that.
It's just a costume. You think that guy's still out there?
What's up with you and this clown all of a sudden? You're like obsessed.
They never found his body. What if he decides to come back here?
I wouldn't worry about it.
Wait a minute, aren't you that guy from the costume shop?
Sir, what are you doing?
It wasn't me.
He was covered in blood on his shirt and his hands when he got here.
I'm telling you, it was him, Allie. Right down to the little black dot on the tip of his nose.
You're really weird, you know that?
I believe him.
About what? Something really bad's gonna happen tonight.
No, I know when Jonathan's lying, okay? I could hear it in his voice. Something's wrong.
Look, we're gonna have fun. Stress-free environment.
Yep.
Speaking of surprises, kids, we have a very special guest with us today, all the way from Miles County. Please welcome Art the Clown.
Do you have an emergency?
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Perkovich, and this is episode number 467. Out now in theaters across the US is Terrifier 2, the sequel to the 2016 cult horror film Terrifier, that once again features demented demonic killer Art the Clown as he hacks his way through small-town America on Halloween. A bigger, bolder, and bloodier horror experience that continues to build the foundation and mythology of what is sure to be an enduring horror franchise. Terrifier 2 is sure to terrify those who are willing to experience this next step in the theatre of the macabre. And joining me now on the podcast is the writer and director of Terrifier 2, Damien Leone. Damien, I thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
Well, it's really, I was just saying to you before about how I've been following your career since All Hallows Eve, but it's interesting when you talk about Art the Clown as a character. He's been with you for a very long time. I mean, all the way back to your short film, The Ninth Circle. Right. I'm really curious though, when you live with a character for that long, what was the idea of Art back then compared to what he is now? Was he always supposed to be this kind of character that was supposed to evolve and endure over a number of films, or is that something that just kind of develops and happens over time as your ambitions as a career, as a filmmaker kind of develops and happens over time as well?
Yeah, it absolutely happened over time. He was created, he was one of many little horror ideas that I had just floating around in my head since like just fresh out of high school or something like that. And when it came time to make my first short film, what I considered my first official short film, because I was shooting it on 35 millimeter for the first time, which was The Ninth Circle, I said, I got this cool killer clown idea and I'm just going to open my movie with that. And then when it came time to figure out what the clown is, what his personality is, I give a lot of credit to Tim Curry's Pennywise, because that was and still is arguably the greatest killer clown of all time. And he was the most popular then by far. And I said, if I'm going to do a killer clown, he can't be anything like Tim Curry's Pennywise. So He's not going to be colorful. He's not going to have hair. He's not going to speak. he's not going to have, everything, if you go across the board, polar opposite. So, and then when I sculpted his face, I wanted Art to kind of look like a witch or give him witchy features or a classic devil, pointed nose, pointed chin, things like that. And, long story short, he just kind of kicked off this short film. He was in the opening 2 minutes and then he's gone. And then it shifts over to a demonic cult and monsters and all these kind of creatures underground. And everybody who saw that short film said, dude, that clown at the beginning is nuts. He looks so cool, he's so creepy and unsettling, and you have to do more with that character. And then I got that note across the board. So I said, naturally, I have to make another short film with this character. It'll focus solely on Art the Clown. And that's when I really started fleshing him out a little more, so to speak, or giving him more of a personality. And also the big shift this time was I turned him into a slasher officially. And then, same thing. Once people saw that, they said, wow, he's so cool. You have to turn this into a feature. And that's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to go from my Terrifier short film to Terrifier the feature, but it was very difficult. Like, nobody wanted to give me money. Nobody believed in the character really, in order, to allow me to go make Terrifier. I mean, the producer of All Hallows Eve found Terrifier the short film on YouTube, and he was making, he had the idea to make All Hallows Eve, which was going to be just a horror anthology based on short Halloween-based films that he found on YouTube. And I talked him into letting me run the whole movie. And he didn't know that I had the Ninth Circle, which was another, Art the Clown piece. And he loved Art, though. He knew that he wanted to put that face on the box. But going from Terrifier to the short to the feature was a long journey. And the only reason why it happened is I met my producer, my partner, Phil Falcone, who's the only one to give me money to actually make it. So a long journey.
It's interesting, not only in this film, not only the evolution of Art as a character, kind of like the whole kind of world you're building here. And what's really interesting about it is that you have a protagonist now in Sienna who's played beautifully by Lauren Lavera.
Yeah,
the character, though, I guess people can call her a final girl, but there's more to it than that. What really struck me about your film, Terrifier 2, is the symbology behind it. Myself, I'm a Catholic myself, and Catholic horror fan. I don't know if there's many of them around, but what's really striking to me is that when I look at what Lauren's character is with the wings and everything, almost kind of like an archangel in a way, and the image that kind of endures to me is the image of Michael the Archangel standing over Satan with the spear. Does that type of imagery, that kind of religious iconography, does that play in any way at all in regards to how you wanted to create what is essentially almost in your film a battle between good and evil?
Oh my God! I mean, it's undeniable. It's actually, to me, it's so heavy-handed. I mean, there is so much symbolism and metaphors and motifs. I mean, I was raised Catholic, so I guess it is maybe a little, it sides on the Catholicism and then that kind of iconography. But I tried to really touch upon just universal good versus evil themes. But as soon as I knew I was going to raise Art the Clown from the dead, supernatural, to me, that's a demon. And I've had this character, Sienna, visually, not who Sienna became, but since 2008, I knew I wanted to have this final girl, Valkyrie, Old Testament angel warrior in a slasher film. So once you have those two characters, you have a clear-cut heaven versus hell movie. And all those, undertones and the subtext, I mean, it's all there. It's baked into the entire movie. So some of it's very heavy-handed, but some of it is also very subtle. I mean, there's a lot going on. So I'm glad you appreciated that. I think that element might actually be a little off-putting to some people because it's so extreme. It's such a radically different direction than the first movie. And I knew that was going to be one of the biggest gambles I was taking, bringing this big supernatural and mystical element and even this Arthurian element to it. I mean, there's like Excalibur stuff going on in this movie as well. Like, because I grew up loving those movies too, like Excalibur and Red Sonja, Beastmaster, Conan the Barbarian, like all those movies. I love them almost as much as I do horror films. So I drew from so many different films and inspiration.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you will love. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon. The world's leading online store, Amazon is your first stop to buy a wide range of products at competitive prices with fast delivery times. Amazon is also a world-class entertainment hub that includes Prime Video, Audible, Twitch, Amazon Music, and more. Sign up with Amazon today and experience the best in online shopping and entertainment. I love it myself because I like when if it's got to be a franchise, you have to evolve things, and and I think it's really important that characters like Art are not just seen as kind of like a butcher or a slasher on his own. You need to have more to that, and to do that, you need to flesh out the things around him. You need to lift the stakes. Stakes are important, I think, in horror films. What does continue on though is kind of like I mentioned before in my intro, the theater of the macabre. This is very much a movie, like a horror movie, kind of like I kind of like. I'm a heavy metal fan as well. I kind of like this, kind of like the black metal to like the heavier kind of stuff. It's kind of like more extreme and such. And I was curious about working with blood, creating it, the color of it. How important is things like the creation of the color of blood when it comes to something like senses, for example? Can the blood be too dark? Can it be too light? Does that make a difference in how you kind of approach that kind of aspect of filmmaking? Because this movie's got rivers of it, and showing that much of it, I'm sure on your part you have to make changes to the color in the I guess I don't know if you could say personality in regards to blood, but in a sort of way, it's kind of like you're painting with ink, and this ink is very important to your painting that you put in towards the cinema goer.
Sure. I mean, the blood is a character in and of itself in this film. You could say. I've never had to personally worry about censorship. Thankfully, even up until now, the fact that Terrifier is released in the U.S. in theaters unrated is pretty unprecedented. It's wild, but that is a big concern for films, Hollywood movies. I mean, Quentin Tarantino famously had to turn that sequence in Kill Bill black and white because it was so graphic.
I know that Scorsese in Taxi Driver, he got I think he had an X rating. And then he said, well, what if I just change the color of the blood to make it look more like tomato sauce? And then you got to go pass through. Yeah,
which is ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing ever. But they should have never did that. And I heard they can't even get the color back or something because I don't know. But I mean, it's still perfect. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And Dick Smith did all that blood work, and he's one of my makeup heroes.
Oh, yeah, Exorcist for sure. Yeah.
Oh, my God. And people still don't realize that that's a bald cap on De Niro with all that, when he shaves his head, it's flawless. But, I like to, at this point, there is so much accessible, high quality makeup materials and blood. So I always order the blood that I like. It's actually a blood from I tried to use the most in Terrifier, but I didn't use it for all of it. It's this blood from the UK called Robert Smith blood. And it's a silicone blood, very realistic, just amazing consistency and color. It's as realistic as you can get. But there's one scene in particular. Are we allowed to talk about spoilers? I'm open to talk about spoilers. I don't know.
I'm open to it as well. If you want to go into it, that's fine.
So there's a beheading scene, a really graphic decapitation in the middle of the movie where I specifically wanted to make the blood look like 70s style blood that looked kind of more like paint and was very opaque. And I had to whip that up from scratch and figure out how to make that. So I was using powdered milk and Bloody Mary mix and all these kind of weird things, putting in with the blood to get it this specific paint-like color that looked a little unrealistic, but also looked real at the same time. And to me, the 70s blood was almost more disturbing. It just looked thicker and it looked almost like a tomato sauce. So there was just in Dawn of the Dead, there's just something really disgusting about it. So I specifically wanted that kill to have that blood. So, yeah.
What I love about your monster Art the Clown is the ambiguity in regards to him. You don't really know what he is, where he comes from, what his motivations are. But at the same time, there's a curiosity, right? You want to know more. And it's kind of this really weird kind of to and fro as an audience member watching it. You as a filmmaker, I'm sure that the success of the first Terrifier and what will guarantee will be a success of the second one as well will want to lead to developing the character more. Do you find yourself struggling trying to find that balance between the ambiguity of what the character is versus trying to quench the thirst of what people want to know more about him? And in doing so, is there any type of trepidation, Lord, that you might perhaps, I don't know, give away too much, show your hands too much in regards to the character? Because I find sometimes that with monsters, if you try to humanize them too much, sometimes the impact of who and what they are could be watered down significantly with future films.
1,000%. I think I say all the time, if we pull the curtain back too far and you see the wizard, it's over. You're going to lose. You're going to lose the whole mystique of the character. And especially if you keep building that mystique, higher and higher, and then you reveal it, you're going to disappoint at least half your audience, no matter what. They're going to say, really, that's what he turned out to be, or who he turned out to be. But at the same time, I think it's my responsibility as a writer to come up with something very creative and cool and something that is satisfying. So I try and walk a line and give the audience enough information where they're not totally in the dark, where maybe by the end of Terrifier, you could say, you could have a conversation with 3 people and you say, well, he's got to be one of these 3 things. And whoever has the best argument, God bless. So, something like that. I don't want him to be too ambiguous, but I'll never fully just be like, well, this was him. And I'll never make you feel bad about the character. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's probably the biggest disservice you can do is when you sort of make the audience even empathize with somebody this evil and this sadistic and give him a reason for why he's this sadistic. That's never going to happen either.
Well, look, Terrifier 2 is a movie that really had me glued to my seat throughout the whole ordeal. Even like in the harder, more hardcore elements of it, I was watching it and appreciating it for the craft as much as anything else. And I got to say, Damien Leone, congratulations to you. I know the character has been with you for a long time. Watching yourself take the reins of your own franchise, which I'm sure on its own brings its own difficulties and glories, would have been an experience for you. And for out there, if you're looking for a horror experience this Halloween season, you need to watch Terrifier 2 right now in cinemas. Take a whole bunch of your friends, watch the film, enjoy it, and then go out there and make your own costumes afterwards. Because I'm sure Art the Clown is going to be very popular this Halloween post-COVID. A lot of people are going to be wearing that costume. And Damien Leone, again, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for your movie, and hopefully we get to talk again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Matthew. This was fun, man. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.